the best of the week on Relevant Radio.
Scott Weeman joins me. He's the founder of a group called Catholic in Recovery. I heard about them about 2 years ago. Scott's been on the show with me a couple times. Fill us in on your story and maybe the founding.
Yeah, the quick version. I grew up in Northeast Wisconsin. Had my first drink at 17 years old, and grew up in a community neighborhood. If you Google the 10 drunkest counties in the United States, you'll find out exactly where I grew up. And
Wisconsinites like to drink.
Yeah, and that's no indictment there either.
Yeah.
Loved the effect of alcohol.
Yeah.
Later, drugs. Was active in policy debate in high school, sports as well. Had great friends. Went to a university in downtown Manhattan college on a debate scholarship. And it was right around that time that my drinking and drug use and other lustful behavior really took off. Moved from small town Wisconsin to downtown Manhattan. It was a big change. I was, leaning on alcohol, drugs, other behaviors and substances to relieve myself of, feelings of not being enough, this, need to achieve, to be in relationship and such, and people pleasing, all sorts of different kind of, I would say just low grade challenges. But loved what alcohol could do for me. And, it shifted quickly from recreational to reckless. And 2 DUIs, 19 and 21 years old, other citations related to alcohol use, relationships with my family, close friends, distant as I, pursued relationships with other people who were endorsing my behavior. Yep. And after treatment, stayed sober for about 8 months at 21 years old, white knuckling it, but that wasn't enough to, find a true solution. A couple of years later, with a woman who I fell in love with, who became my idol, because I didn't have a relationship with God. Grew up nominally Catholic, but wasn't a huge priority in my family, and certainly became less of a priority for me as I was prioritizing other spirits. And moved from Wisconsin to San Diego when I was 25 years old in 2010. A year later, the woman that I moved out there with wanted nothing more to do with me, and did the best thing that she could for herself, let me go. And after about a month and a half of isolated drinking and drug use, was desperate. And on October 10th, 2011, found sobriety. And a group of people, men and women, recovering alcoholics who had a solution to my problem. And I was scared, very fearful, resentful, hopeless when I first walked into the rooms of 12-step recovery. Yeah. And they shared hope and love and mercy. And I was expecting, judgment, but instead was invited to keep coming back and made my way back to the church, a great young adult
What brought you to
community.
that point, though? What was your breaking point that finally got you to this point?
It was as a lot of men, I would say, is the lost relationship, the relationship with this person who I had glorified as my idol, who was a great woman from a great Catholic family.
That was sobering in some respects then. You realized what you had and what you lost.
Yeah. I mean, I had lost a lot prior to that, but that was really the last straw. And, in this very brief moment of grace, if you're listening right now and you're feeling like I've got to do something about this, those windows of grace, because we can rationalize very well and make all sorts of justifications why the next drink or drug or drive-through might be okay. And that just further, keeps reinforcing that the problem. For me, the problem and my solution were the same thing. Alcohol, drugs, lust were a great escape from the problems caused by alcohol, drugs, lust, and other behaviors. Yeah. And, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired for this very brief moment. And like I mentioned, October 10, 2011, walked into a meeting and didn't think that there was going to be a whole lot of hope for a guy like me who, I deemed as being, complicated. Your simple solutions weren't going to work for me. But was just captured by others who had what I wanted. They were living joyfully. They were normal people. And, made my way back to the church around the same time, a really excellent young adult community in San Diego, St. Bridget Parish, Pacific Beach. Found some others who I could relate to who were around my age, and they shared the light of Christ with me. And, so the 12 steps, working with the sponsor and connecting daily to meetings, reading recovery literature, and then diving further into my faith, really kind of finding my faith for the first time. Both of those things were essential in bringing this new life about. And I can't take any credit for it. It's by the grace of God and the fellowship of others who had walked with me both in the church and in 12-step recovery meetings that brought me new life.
Yeah.
And so, a couple of years into my sobriety recovery, I found that the church could learn from what was happening in the rooms of 12-step recovery meetings.
Yeah, I agree.
In the way that we're sharing the gospel, sharing good news, meeting people really where they're at, not as an indictment or with judgment, but with love and mercy. And there were plenty of people in those 12-step recovery meetings who were longing for a deeper relationship with their higher power. And, whereas 12-step recovery, which has branched from, serving alcoholics to serving people with all sorts of different addictions, compulsions, and unhealthy attachments, is a spiritual program. But as founder of AA, Bill Wilson would suggest and has said to a group of Catholics that AA is spiritual kindergarten. And that's not actually an indictment of AA as well.
No, not at all. That's great.
My spirit and my spirituality has been formed incredibly by 12-step recovery.
Wow. And
the men and women, some Catholics, some not, some Christian, some not, but carrying the light of Christ and providing hope. And so kind of blending the two, I started a website, CatholicInRecovery.com, and just writing articles related to faith and 12-step recovery, topics that relate to the two. Maybe 6 months into that, in 2015, I got an email from a woman from Ave Maria Press. I had done I think I did an interview with someone that was posted, the Christophers, Tony Rossi. And that was providential. And a woman from Ave Maria Press read that interview and reached out asking if I was interested in doing some more writing. And from there, a proposal to write a book, which was later published, titled The 12 Steps in the Sacraments, came about.
Beautiful.
Took about 2 years for that book to come to life. And in the meantime, was doing some speaking in San Diego. Best part of that was when I was done talking and other people had a chance to share their experience, strength, and hope related to their challenges with addiction or their recovery or their loved ones' challenges with addiction through the lens, though, of saints, scriptures, Catholic devotions, things that might be a little bit out of bounds, a little too specific in a secular 12-step meeting. And so it became very clear we need to keep bringing these people together. Started our first Catholic in Recovery meeting in January 2017 at St. Joseph Cathedral, downtown San Diego, bringing people together with a variety of addictions, compulsions, and unhealthy attachments. And I got to make this clear too, not claiming to be a substitute for secular 12-step groups, but rather supplemental to. And the way I see it, kind of a bridge between secular recovery and the church and vice versa. We get a lot of people who come to Catholic in Recovery meetings who have been sober for years or decades, but making their way to the church. Sometimes, it's not uncommon to hear a story of people after participating in Catholic in Recovery returning to the Sacrament of Reconciliation for the first time in several decades, or people who have been in the church for a while, in recovery for a while. Those maybe two things have lived very separately in their lives, but being able to blend the two and integrate faith and 12-step recovery, not needing to feel like we need to take our Catholic hat off when we walk into a 12-step meeting or our recovery hat off when we walk into the church.
I like that. So, and I want to go back. We'll grab a few calls here for you too, but what role do the sacraments play in long-term recovery?
Yeah, I think, the sacraments just work graces that are in some ways hard to define, but in a lot of ways, really the movement of the 12 steps follows the movement of the sacraments. Whereas, this is outlined in my book, The 12 Steps in the Sacraments. Steps 1, 2, and 3 symbolizing are very similar to our baptism, where we're identifying a need for a Savior. And instead of really identifying ourselves, although I would tell you, I'm an alcoholic and an addict of all sorts, not defining ourselves by the addictions that mar us, but rather finding identity in our belovedness as sons and daughters of God. And, concupiscence plays a factor into that as well, and the grace of baptism, which cannot, is a stain that cannot be removed from us, a stain in the best ways, is beautiful. And sacraments of reconciliation, probably the most, I would say, glaring integration between steps 4 through 9. We make a searching, fearless moral inventory of ourselves, share that with God, ourselves, and another human being, ask for God to remove whatever defects of character stand in the way of us serving Him and others, and then making penance or an amends, as we might call it in recovery.
Well, Scott, thank you for all that you do. I mean, I think God is at work. He's touching a lot of lives today. I know He touched your life, and your story reminds me how He brings good out of every situation.
That was the best of the week on Relevant Radio. The best way to listen to the best of the week is on the Relevant Radio app, free and always free. Download and share the #1 free Catholic app today in the App Store.